evening, everyone. And good evening to David Juteau.
Hi, everybody.
Owner of OTJ, hasn't been around for a little while, and I wanted to bring him on the show to talk about a few things that are happening with the group these days, and maybe talk about what other people might be asking him after when we get people to come in and ask their questions of him. But first, I want to ask, how are you, Dave?
Good. The new semester started 2 weeks ago for university, and I judge my goodness by whether or not I'm enjoying my classes, and so far so good.
You're all face-to-face now.
Yep. The first week we did all the classes online, and I think that was just to be as a backup in case something happens during the semester. The kids will have at least experienced the technology at least one time. We did it in the first semester. We have the same students from one semester to the next. So they've had 2 chances this year to experience online, but it was just the first class of each semester. So, but yeah, face-to-face for the whole thing now.
You put up a post about Jamboard though.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're still using Jamboard and digital tools in your face-to-face classes?
I am today. So today I used Padlet for a more extensive group sharing, and I used Jamboard just for a quick, let's get your ideas up there real quick with your partner. So yeah, I still use that stuff. Even
in a face-to-face classroom?
I would say almost especially now in a face-to-face classroom.
So you've got the kids on their smartphones, or you tell
the kids, for example, my writing class, they have to bring laptops. So that's nice. But they all have their smartphones. But speaking, listening classes, some have laptops, but most of them just have the smartphones. So they're using that. And that was kind of one of the things that I did in the first online class, both semesters, is let's go through some of these tools that we're going to use this semester. And so they were all familiar with that by the time we got into the face-to-face situation.
When you were teaching, just before the pandemic, or maybe I'll phrase the question this way. Did you ever think, or when you do think about yourself before, as a teacher before the pandemic, did you ever think that you're going to be using so many digital tools, or you're going to be getting kids to be using their smartphone in class and getting them to dig into their computers to actually do communication classes with you? Did you ever think you'd be here where you are now with all these digital tools?
Not quite this way. But so prior to the pandemic, I used to do Quizlet live in class with smartphones. And I always had one project where they had to make a video on their smartphone for a speaking task, describing their neighborhood or something. So I was kind of dabbling in using the tools that were in front of me, but I didn't know about any of these other tools like Padlet or Jamboard or even Google in it itself. I didn't use Google, and like our Moodle LMS, I didn't use any of that stuff. So, but I did use what was right in front of my face. So the kind of looking back, I'm kind of semi-techie in that I like music technology. So, but to answer your question, not really, no. And not that I would have been the last person, but I'm a little bit older, and I worked with guys like Paul Rain who produced Zengengo. So these guys are techie, but I was like, that's not my world, that's your world, So
and now that you're in that world, do you find it kind of like do you sort of smile to yourself, or are you kind of wondering, how did I ever get here? Or are you thinking, oh, how do I shed all this stuff because I don't want it in my classroom? Anything like that?
I never think I want to shed it. I think I just want to figure out how to use the tool better. I think, like today, I was coming home thinking, boy, I'm glad. How much did I learn with OTJ in the last 2.5 years? Like, this pandemic is certainly, I think the pandemic, from my way of looking at it, the pandemic has made me a better teacher. And it's given me more tools to use to, I think, make my classes more energetic and more, I don't know. I mean, it's just more interactive. I think my classes are more interactive because of the technology. And I'm not using it for everything. I'm using it as a spice, to spice up the class, but for things that are important. So yeah, no, I'll never divorce myself of it. And, no, yeah, no way.
So through the time that you were in the pandemic, at what point did you sort of realize yourself, wow, I'm really getting into these digital tools. I'm really getting into Jamboard and Padlet. I think I'm becoming a better teacher. Was that shortly after the pandemic, or?
I would say it would have been in the second semester. So the first semester of online, it was just like, how to survive. But I think in the second semester, I kind of had enough time to discover things like Padlet and like, what can we do with that? And then Nick D'Annunzio and myself would start to use it in our TOEFL class, and we would explore using it in different ways. So it was that second semester where I could relax enough to allow myself time to try things, make mistakes and all that stuff. That I would say that's when it really kicked in. But and then you just become more fluent if you keep trying things and keep making mistakes with things, then you eventually get, it doesn't work here, but it works here. It works for this, but it doesn't work for that. Okay, now so that's part of it. Yeah. So
did you find yourself through that process being, well, I don't know about you, but for me, what you described just now is basically what I experienced too, but it was uber stressful. I don't know if that's what you found too, but was it difficult for you, like trying to keep up with all of that, plus trying to run OTJ as well too?
Well, something that really strikes me about OTJ is a lot of it I couldn't apply. A lot of things that were happening on OTJ I couldn't apply because there's just too much, right? So, right. But I chose my tools. I chose my handful of tools, and I try to get good at using those. I didn't keep looking for more and more and more. I just found ones that worked for what seemed to be the need that I had in the class at the time. I think TOEFL is the epitome of how beneficial these tools can be, because you got to get people to do speaking tests and record them, and I got to be able to listen to them in one place and grade them in one place, and that kind of stuff, and sharing things and putting everybody. So TOEFL class really helped solidify my skill and knowledge with the tools I was using. But the stress level was literally 2 years of that. I think.
Were you experiencing more stress from having to adjust to online teaching, or from running a group about online teaching?
The sleepless nights came from running a group.
Really?
Absolutely. The sleepless nights came from that, because that's a really good question, because literally I had to learn how to run an online group. I had to build enough confidence to demarcate where the lines of what we can do and can't do, and who's breaking those, like, I guess, setting up the rules and then learning how to enforce them. And I don't want to say enforce, but learning how to project or get people to buy into the rules, I'll say. That took time. And when there were some conflicts that I lost sleep over, and quite a bit in the first year.
I don't think people appreciate, or not that they don't appreciate. I'm sure that there are people now in the group who don't even know that you're the owner of OTJ, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you in, because we hit the magic mark recently, didn't we? 3,000.
Yep. We're over 3,000 members.
Crossed over 3,000 members. Never would have guessed it. I thought, like, this is a huge group already, when we were over 500.
Yeah.
And here we are, 6 times larger than that. And I think, especially for those who might not have been there when we were already at 1,500 members, maybe at the end of the first semester, or maybe by the end of the first summer sessions, maybe don't know your profile that well. So I was kind of hoping that maybe we could get from you just a quick description about how you came to the idea of putting OTJ together.
That's a good
history real quick.
It's a good question. It was March 29th, 2000, when the pandemic was starting. We were starting to get sort of a buzz that university.
2020, I think.
Sorry, 2020. not 2000. Yeah. So the March 29th, 2020 is when I started the group, but just a few days, there was a couple of things that led into it. One was I needed to do a union meeting, and because of the pandemic, we had to do it online. I heard rumors of Zoom. I got a few pieces of advice from a few people.
I get it.
So
It's okay.
I organized a Zoom meeting for a union meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first taste of Zoom. And that was about 2 weeks before I started the group. But I was just walking down the street and I was thinking, I don't know, but this idea just came into my head. I got to start a Facebook group. And I did. And then I just invited the 30, 40, 50 teachers that I kind of knew of that were my friends on Facebook. And then it just kind of took on a life of its own there. And because my own Eikaiwa had been closed for that time, I had time to dedicate to the group. And so and university classes were postponed by 2 or 3 weeks. So that gave us a window of opportunity to, so I think that first 2 or 3 weeks, there was like 25 or 30 workshops. Simon, who's in the room right now, one of the first ones I hosted about using Zoom, I had no idea what I was doing. But, so it started with a guy who didn't know what he was doing, but was able to somehow, with the people I knew, put together a group that, the mission was clear, right? We all got to learn how to teach online. And it was like everybody in this country needed to learn that. And so people just kept joining because they must have been hearing from other people, hey, there's a group, there's a group, there's a group. There was no way for me to market it except that we existed. And so people marketed it for me through word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And it grew, and then growing equals, well, it's something. So you have to sort of take a responsibility for that something. And that's when it kicked in that I need to, and that's when volunteers started kicking in. People like you, people like
Andrew and Cassie,
particularly those two at the beginning, came to me, said, Dave, I think you might need some help. And I said, well, good, you're the right people then. So it's the people who actually came to me through private messaging that ended up helping to run and grow OTJ. It really, that volunteerism, I get, the spirit of, we need this, we need it to be good, we need it to, and it kind of, I guess by the time you and Adam did the first summer session in August of 2020, by that sort of solidified the fact that this is a group now. This is this is a teaching group, education group in Japan. A community, and it's a community now. And so, and that equals responsibility. And I stepped up my commitment to it as it got bigger and bigger. I committed more and more to it. Mm-hmm. And the people around me, like you and Adam and Cassie, committed more to it. I think that's really what happened.
What do you find running it, when you were running it in 2020, what did you find that you were doing then that either you don't do now, or it's just so easy for you to do now, or what you were doing in 2020 that is still just as difficult now, or what has changed since 2020 in terms of running the group for you?
Because the membership is really quite amazing in that the 6 or 7 rules that are laid out to kind of administer the group, because the rules administer the group, and 99% of the people follow them, it sort of takes care of itself. So the only thing I do now that's quite similar to what I did then is every now and then I post something to try to engage conversation about something. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I don't do much, but we still, I have to use this word, we sort of have to police it. Like, so anybody who was watching yesterday, somebody posted a video that really didn't belong. It broke every rule that we have, but a year ago, I would have agonized over deleting the post and kicking the person out of the group. But last night it was easy. I didn't lose sleep over it. I didn't have to think about it. So I think I've changed in that I just, you get a bit more courage or the experience, you know what the group needs and you know what the group doesn't need. So it needs hands off mostly. And then it just needs monitoring, making sure that, you know, the odd thing, and it's very rare now that something slips through.
That video, I don't know if anybody knows, but we don't need to talk about it in too much detail. But I think what made it really easy to pull the trigger on that was that a particularly egregious videos. Like I think all of us, when we were discussing it on the Facebook chat, were just scratching our heads going, what is this?
Where would you post that with confidence that people would watch it with any kind of like interest?
Oh, it was wow. Okay, I don't need to like rag on that for too much longer. You also, in the spirit of getting conversation going, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to suggest that you maybe want to come on to OTJ for a bit, is you put up a post on there about blended learning. How blended learning is something that you've really found that you're thinking about a lot. And so, you know, you can start with just a general question. What are your thoughts about it now? You know, like, what is blended learning to you?
Well, I mean, I guess having had the experience of teaching online for as many hours as I did for two and a half years or 2 years, I've come to realize that, I hate to say this, but given the right parameters, what's the difference? If the students who are online understand and act responsibly in that role of being an online student, then from the teaching point of view, I don't see that much of a difference between either platform or either I'll call it landscape now. It's like, okay, I'm doing this face to face. I shouldn't be thinking, my brain is thinking, I shouldn't be thinking that is so different over there teaching online. So I'm coming to this kind of point that it should be, I wish I could do more of it more regularly, blend it with my regular teaching. So yeah, I do a few classes online, I do a few classes here, but I'm starting to think of it as it's just teaching, right? Kind of. So.
Well, one of the, sorry, go ahead.
So how do we make that seamless? Really, how do we make maybe sometimes we're teaching online, maybe sometimes we're teaching face to face, maybe sometimes we're teaching hybrid, maybe sometimes we're using the tools so people can access information on demand. Maybe there's all this stuff that we do as teachers that teaching online should be as natural as teaching face to face. I guess I'm trying to get at that level, right?
One of the sort of the definitions that I knew for blended learning was basically not so much that, you know, the different modalities of whether or not the teacher is in front of the camera and the students are on the other side of the camera, or if it's a high flex class, or if it's a hybrid class, and you know, the small difference between them. But to me, blended learning is just the idea of using a digital tools or digital software to create more of a flipped approach to the classroom, where a lot of the book learning, a lot of the assignments are actually done digitally, so that then the teacher doesn't have to spend a lot of time collecting assignments, marking papers, handing papers out, spending 10 minutes on the roll call because there's automatic software to actually do stuff. So getting, you know, the digital bits to do the shitty bits of work that we've had to do before. And to me, that was what I kind of always thought of as blended.
Well, I wonder, I mean, if there was such thing as an umbrella, and then underneath that umbrella, there's various strands of what blended learning could mean to people. But my way of thinking of it at the moment is just the blending of my teaching face to face and my teaching online. Like teaching online last week for me wasn't very different from what I did this week in class face to face. And I thought, so it's the use. I guess in my sense, I'm thinking of it is removing the barrier. There's a mental barrier with me and everybody else about what online teaching is, and that there's some difficulty in it, that there's something that, you know,
Was that
less
something,
than or whatever than teaching face to face. And it's like, well, maybe.
that trepidation, is it, do you sense that to be less now than it was before, perhaps?
For the folks, I mean, the people that I work with in the staff room at Oberlin, the ones who embrace the technology, they don't mind at all. But the ones who didn't, even the ones who just got through the pandemic through teaching online, just it was something to bear with, and just to get through it. And then now I'm done. I see people like that, and that's fine. That's sort of they'll remain sort of that traditional type of teacher. But I think the future of teaching, to me, seems to be using all the tools at hand well and continuing on, into the future.
How do you want OTJ to, how do you see OTJ playing a role in that future that you're sort of seeing now that you're thinking about blended learning, and you're seeing sort of not dividing lines, but the teachers, as they sort of move back either to what they felt was, oh, my comfort zone of the classroom, as opposed to teachers who've sort of picked up these new digital tools. How do you want OTJ to sort of position itself in all of that?
Well, I mean, ideally, it's still a place where even, I mean, remember, we were all beginners 2 years ago. So any question was a good question as long as it related to the topic at hand. So even for a beginner, if somebody comes in and says, I don't know how to set up a Google Doc, then if it's the first time, there's always going to be a first time for everybody who's a new teacher anyway, potentially. But it still should be a place where people can come with any kind of question, whether it's an easy question, a difficult question, a hard question, and get it answered by people in a pleasant way. I had the silliest question about Moodle the other day. How do I unhide a class of students, right? And it's like, well, who am I got to ask somebody quickly. I want to know now, like, because I want to share, right? So I just put it on OTJ, and bang, I got my answer within minutes. And I didn't, the people who answered my question are people who know Moodle like the back of their hand, right? So, and for them, it might have been an easy question to answer, but for me, it was vital at the time. So that's one of the best things about OTJ, right? It's vital at the time. Somebody came and answered my question, and now I can go on and get my job done. I mean, that's the idea, right?
I remember actually asking that question myself in 2020. I was going, okay, you want me to, like, students are asking me, Mr. Cruz, I can't see my course, and I go, I don't know what to do, and like and I was asking the same question too. But what it made it difficult was that the little menu, the pop-up menu for that, is worded in a really bad way. It says either hide or show. So if it's shown, it says show, but the button says show, so you think that you got to click this button to show it, and then because of the way that the English works, the way your brain works, I couldn't get around that. The idea that it says hide, okay, so I click it to hide it, or I don't click it to hide it, or
unhide, or whatever.
Or unhide, yeah, and like it's I wish they would rephrase that. In any case, that's just me bitching about that. So as long as we're, I mean, I always think that that's one of the great things about OTJ, is that questions are there to be answered, and answered in a very calm, sort of like a helpful way. I completely agree with that. But does this now mean that the range of questions that we're going to be asking, because we are moving more face to face, but we're using digital tools, we're not strictly teaching online anymore, that is going to change the nature of the group?
Well, that's the conundrum that I guess we've kind of been predicting and knowing for, in other conversations for 2 years. What happens when the pandemic's over and people go back face to face? A couple of things are coalescing in the background, and this is not a new conversation for many of us. There's no way we haven't thought about it. But recently, I joined your presentation for Gifu Jolt, I think.
Yeah, Gifu Jolt. Yeah.
And what I found interesting was that a lot of them, yeah, a lot of the members, a lot of people who are members of OTJ don't necessarily, two things. One is they come here kind of because there's a, well, I guess two things happen. Let me try to go back on this. There's two things happen. One thing, that there was a bit of a conflict in another education group that we helped solve that riddle in OTJ Off Topic. That was about a month ago. And I thought, well, that's OTJ is the source of solving problems for other people out there. Why is it that it can happen so easily? And then actually speaking with you, Jose, you mentioned that just because there's not a real hierarchy here, in a sense that it's just you post it and people comment, and then they can, so it's very easy access to quick information. So that kind of stuck in my mind. And the other one was one of the members of your presentation who mentioned that they never really contributed to OTJ, but they came and they felt not alone by seeing how other teachers were dealing with the pandemic and with online teaching. It confirmed that they were doing the right thing. So being a member was still valuable to them, even though they didn't necessarily learn a lot from OTJ. They learned more from just the camaraderie, I guess, or from, being included in a group that's on having the same struggle. The struggles change now, I suppose. Yeah, and this is, this is the hard part that I'm trying to deal with now, is how do you, what parameters do you open up to make the group still relevant to people who are now just teaching in the classroom? And maybe they're not even using a whole lot of tools, but they still like the group. They like the environment of the group. And we don't have this emergency situation of, if there's any post that doesn't relate to online 100%, it's an interruption. That was true a year ago. That was true 2 years ago. But I don't know if it's true now. There's no real, if you see something of interest, you click on it. If you scroll through and it's, if you're not, I don't know how to put that exactly, but, because the emergency of online teaching has subsided, then maybe people could be more relaxed about having other things on that are not directly online related. But I guess the point I'm trying to get to, Jose, is it's all related, whether it's online or in the.
I agree. Just to make it clear what you're suggesting, or are you suggesting that this is something that you're in the process of thinking about, or you're kind of inviting people to start bringing in more questions that are more towards general pedagogy? If, let's say, somebody brought in a question about, let's say, I don't know, classroom discipline into OTJ, and they're talking specifically about face-to-face classes, is that something that you think still a little too far out of range? Let's pull
I mean, it's hard for me to be the judge of that exactly, because it's a kind of a community thing, but
Thanks, Simon.
It would be, thanks, Simon. Yeah, catch you later. It would be, I guess, certainly getting feedback is important. What are, I mean, the group's not for me anymore. I mean, I don't come to OTJ to learn how to teach but it'd be nice if other teachers came to OTJ and could learn, I guess that's not true, because I went to OTJ Moodle to learn how to use the equipment. But yeah, I mean, how could that expand without deteriorating, without losing what the group? I don't know. What I think there's some malleability there, right? Because it's a good group.
It's a great group.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just gonna throw this out to the group. I noticed too that I wasn't watching the Facebook chat as well as I should have, and there were a couple of comments by Adam Jenkins, and he noted that on the topic of blended learning, different tools are better for different purposes, though, so it's worthwhile giving some thought to the concept of blended learning, in my humble opinion. And he came up with the definition for blended learning, or sorry, flipped learning, flipped classes in Japanese, but I can't read those kanji. So I don't know, Adam, you want to join us here and tell us how to read that. But not only those comments, but whatever comments people would like to make here in the Zoom room, I have now given everybody the ability to unmute themselves, and we can get into this discussion, because this is something that I've been talking with Dave about for the longest time, because people have brought this up to me, and I thought that it was something that we needed to discuss. That where or at what point do we sort of, like, as David said, move those blinders out a little bit and focus on less, or I'm sorry, stop or try to focus on more than just online teaching. I'll give you one thought experiment, Dave. One thing that started up the conversation about, hey, OTJ could be so much more, because at the time we were a community of 2,200 teachers all up and down the country. And I've always thought, and I still think, that most of the people in OTJ are the people who are really the best, most caring, most dynamic, most energetic teachers, especially at the university level, that you'll find in the country. And these are people who want to talk to their colleagues on all kinds of topics and on stuff that is more than just about online teaching, and they want to take advantage of the community. So the thought experiment is this. In 2021, someone posted, because there was no such thing as off topic. This is one of the posts that actually led to the creation of Off Topic, a post about a woman who had gone missing, and she was reported missing. Remember that post?
Yeah.
So this was a woman who was reported missing, and the police were trying to frantically find her, and her family, of course, was frantic. And this post was running around on other boards like Japan Today and other things like that. And the family wanted to get the word out to as many places as possible. And there was somebody that put the post up on OTJ. And it was pretty clear at the time that I knew what you were going to do. It's just like, it's too bad, but this isn't online teaching. We want to keep this really tight. But if there's anything that sort of should require us to reconsider, or at least make an exception in this case, it's something like this that's really important on a human level. So would something like that still be too extreme, you think, for OTJ?
It's I mean, there was that, and there was another incident too, with a health issue with one of the members. It's nothing's too extreme if we get enough agreement on. I guess what I would say is that a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was focused, and I was encouraged to be focused by a few other people. Don't waver, keep it focused. And I think it worked for the time that was there, but I don't. Yeah, it's I guess my concern is, I'm afraid. I'm not even afraid. Just if you open the doors to everything, where's the limit? And but teaching, yeah, I don't know, and I don't even, does it need a limit? I don't know. It did for the 2.5 years, or for 2 years, it needed the limit, and that worked. But if online learning became part of everybody's life now in Japan, I think it's just going to go away for most people. Some teachers will still do it, but I think it's just going to go down like this. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That's why we're here, kind of, to, I'm open to suggestions. That's for sure. I'm open to see what the community accepts.
And I'm open to having other people join us in the Zoom room. I put the link in the Facebook chat. I was kind of hoping you'd say something like, well, yeah, that's a really important thing, Jose, but it's not online teaching. It's not even about pedagogy. So in the cases of things like that, stuff that is not related to pedagogy, then we could make a new statement that says, and everything else, just ask, but please ask before posting, because we want to make this specifically about pedagogy. So my suggestion to you before was to change the name ever so slightly from Online Teaching Japan to Online Teachers Japan.
Mhm.
So it opens up the idea that this isn't just about online teaching. So the 2-word phrase
Mhm.
there, which is actually a relatively narrow field, but teachers who teach online, what are those people thinking about? Then that could be what the group could stand for. As I said before, you don't have to change the logo, you don't have to change the acronym. The acronym still works as OTJ, but becoming Online Teachers Japan, then it's everything that teachers are concerned about. And that includes things like how do you prevent theft in the classroom? What do you do for your the way that you take attendance in class? And then, of course, the traditional discussions about how to use Jamboard and how do I edit Google Sheets or something like that.
I thought about the name thing after we spoke the last time about that, and even as it stands, I don't see how it couldn't be just reinterpreted, which is just the group is an online group, and the group's topic field of discussion is teaching in Japan.
Okay.
It's, I mean, in that case, either way, it means that the name has a magical sense to it, right? It could have meant online only, talking about online teaching only, or it could be a group that happens to it only exists online because we don't have a physical mandate like JALT or whatever, where we have conferences physically out in some building. This group is solely contained in the online environment. So that meaning can be tweaked one way without losing anything, right? But we're all teaching in Japan. So either way, OTJ can remain, but just the focus of the group can be now on teaching more than on the online part. I think that's like when you use the word pedagogy, I guess I just think of it as teaching, what teachers think about, right?
Sure.
And like I draw that in, I think, like even in my today's post, like one of the tools that I use online and in face-to-face classes, I've always been able to do this, and I used to always be amazed at sometimes the way people would post. Like you can twist any post to have a relationship with online teaching. This is what I'm doing in my class. I wonder how online teachers might do that.
Exactly.
Like,
sure.
Does anybody find it different when they're, like it's all, and that's where I'm coming to this point, this conclusion after 2 years of doing this, or 2.5 years, is that it's just teaching. Why does online or face-to-face have to be so much the focus? And why not bring the focus into teaching, which I think has been your point for quite some time as well, right?
So if someone brought in a discussion about, say, extensive reading, but not about extensive reading using X reading or whatever else, not online extensive reading, but just like, hey, what do you guys do to make silent reading in the classroom maybe a little more fun? Do you play music in your face-to-face classroom and you do extensive reading? Would that be okay?
Again, when you ask that question that way, I immediately think to myself, why doesn't that relate to online teachers? Because my class at Oberlin, my reading class, they use X reading in the classroom. I give them 20 minutes each week to do reading in the classroom, and they use MReader to do the quiz. Well, those tools are online, and there's a few students that didn't pay for X reading. They have to go to the library and borrow physical books. Like it's, I think all of us are having a blend of both of those experiences in one way or the other, maybe some more than others. So like maybe that question is perfectly legitimate on OTJ now. Or it could be, maybe it could be if we expanded the parameter of the rules or whatever, why not?
How about cat memes? How about debates on pineapple?
Absolutely not. So, I mean, this is the thought I had about this since we last spoke, Jose, when we were just you and I speaking, which was there should be an element, I hate to put it this way, but there should be an element of seriousness to it. It should be an element of professional development, right? Basically, And today I'm riding my scooter home thinking about this, and I'm thinking, what all that I want is to become a better teacher.
Right.
You can do your research and all that other stuff that for other people, but all I want is to be a better teacher. And all OTJ has ever been to me is how to become a better teacher. In the first instance, online, how to be a better online teacher. Now it's like, I just want to be a better teacher. So if you got a question that relates to how do I become a better teacher, or how can I help other teachers become better teachers, I think, I don't know, this is where I'd like to get people like Adam and Nick D'Annunzio, who have been my hardliners for keeping it core focused, right? Because I'm feeling more flexible about it, you know.
I think there is a point where the core focus itself has its value, but as time moves on and the people who are the main community members, those main community members in OTJ are not online teaching fanatics. They needed to learn about online teaching because it was something that they needed to do. It wasn't something that they wanted to do. And when you have a really tightly focused group on, let's say, I don't know, Marvel Comics.
Yep.
You're not allowed to talk about DC Comics. You're not allowed to talk about Dark Horse Comics. We're here to talk about Marvel Comics. And you're not allowed to talk about Marvel movies. We're here to talk about Marvel Comics. You're going to attract over time the sort of people that are fanatics about that genre.
Yeah.
But the people who came to OTJ, what is their frame of mind? What were they actually there for? They needed help to actually do something they didn't want to do. And what they stayed for was the camaraderie in the community, as you identified. But they're not there to get even more blood out of the stone of online teaching. They're there because they like being with their fellow teachers. And their fellow teachers, what's mostly on their mind? Well, it's like you said, they want to become better teachers. Maybe they want to talk a little bit about research. There's a lot of research that's very, very pertinent to pedagogy out there. But in a wider field of view than just online teaching. One of the other things that I think made OTJ really take off was that at the time during the pandemic, there were people who were SIG members for JALT Call, they were SIG members for extensive reading, they were SIG members for Guile or Gile and Gale, and they normally get a lot of the social aspect of the stuff that they do from going to group meetings, monthly group chapter meetings and stuff like that. And we weren't allowed to do it. And not only weren't we allowed to go out of the house, but a lot of those SIGs shut down and they couldn't have any discussion. So a lot of the discussion that was being done was actually being done in OTJ. But OTJ wasn't talking about stuff like gender issues or equality in language education, or it wasn't talking about extensive reading in a face-to-face classroom. But the teachers who were there were thinking, well, that's okay. That's not really the most important thing right now. Right now, I need to know how to do Jamboard and Padlet and Zoom. But now here they are. They don't need that stuff so much, and or they became good at it because we served that purpose. So the laser focus of online teaching as a topic might be a disservice to the people who are still there, because there's only so much that they need to discuss anymore. They know what to do with Zoom. The questions about Zoom that I used to have to answer all the time back in 2020 have come down to a trickle because everyone knows how to use Zoom now.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So basically what we're trying to say is, how do we migrate ourselves from what was once a very important mission? And as you said, I think we did an amazing role. We did an amazing job of, all of us as a community, we did an amazing job of getting 2,000, 3,000 people through whatever it is they had to get through. But then you're left with either closing shop or, hey, the group, I guess the other reason I brought this up to you prior is also, I just noticed the activity is still there. People are still checking in. Whether they're getting anything from that check-in or not, they're still checking in. And so if they're checking in, why not make their checking in worthwhile.
Right.
Why not make this the first place they check in before they check into other places, if it can meet their educational needs? And I guess that would be my, yeah, I mean, you know, I guess it's a leap of faith. You just got to, we would just have to jump forward and say, let's do this and see how it goes, and see, because, you know, there's some things that I didn't like, and some people, you know, I was heavily criticized for because of it too. I didn't want political stuff on here. I didn't want religious stuff on here. I didn't want political stuff. I never wanted to see the name of any president on here or any politician. And when it did happen, those people were quickly escorted out of the group.
Yeah.
And you know,
I remember a couple of
yeah,
those.
no, I know you do. And so that's, I don't want to make it more difficult to manage, because it's you know, but why not have the most amazing teaching community in Japan, where people can come and still get quality answers from their quality questions about teaching? Yeah, why not?
Well, to that end, first, a couple of comments. One from CA. She says, how can I become a better teacher and use online tools that are available to students, even if I'm not teaching online per se, is her question. That's sort of what she uses, shall we say, what she uses the group for, is how to improve her teaching using online tools that are available to students. And to your point, what you just mentioned just now, Adam kind of rebuts and says, look, if you want less focus, if you want to talk about ER, if you want to talk about gender awareness, then, you know, you got the whole rest of the internet, was his point. If one wants less focus, the whole of Facebook awaits them. Now, I would rebut that and said, yes, the rest of Facebook awaits them, but what they want to do is discuss those issues in this community with these people. They don't want.
See, that's a perception that you have with the people you come in contact with, perhaps, that that's what they want. I don't know what people want. What I do know is that people are still coming, people are still engaged. So I don't know if people want to speak about gender issues in specific. Like there's certain kinds of things that, yeah, I mean, as it directly relates to me teaching in the class.
Yeah. I'm not talking about gender issues just in general. You know, I'm not talking about, let's bring in recent politics in California or something like that. No, I'm talking about gender issues in the classroom. How do you handle this? What are your materials for it? A student asked me this question. How would you have answered that? So again, as it relates to pedagogy, on the specific niche of I don't know, equality or equity or neurolinguistics or something like that, but not just neurology in general. Of course, that's not related to pedagogy.
Yeah, back to the question before, was it CA? You said CA?
CA, yes. CA
Yeah,
said,
I mean,
how to become a better teacher.
Absolutely, that kind of thinking or that kind of question is, how can I harness the tools that I know are available to the students and use those in a face-to-face class? How can I do that better? Or how can I be more effective at doing that? I mean, that's the crunch of the matter. That's certainly how OTJ could easily be operating, right? How can it, using the tools? There are other groups out there. I mean, we were kind of tool-based from the beginning, right? It's really technology. How are we going to use this technology to teach? You know, whatever that is, the digital textbook version. I mean, learning how to use the digital version of the textbook in class. For me today, I learned things, right? Because I'm projecting the textbook on the screen the whole time, but there's functions I have with that platform from Cambridge that I wasn't aware of until today, right? And so, yeah, I'm still learning how to use those tools in the classroom that are available both to me and the students. Those kind of questions are still pertinent, and those are the most pertinent questions, but broadening that to, yeah, how do I, what is extensive reading? I've never heard of it before. Can I do that on OTJ? Adam, say something. Come on.
Yeah.
Man. I mean,
Before he does, I just want to address Bjorn Fuisting, put up a comment on Facebook. He says, keep OTJ focused on online teaching tools, but of course, more of the tools will be used in a hybrid or flipped classroom kind of style. So Adam, did you want to bring in your point then?
Sure. Wow, I've got a very green background right now.
certainly do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to do something that makes a bit more sense. Okay. No.
No.
That made no sense.
Safe space.
That made no sense.
I think there's more behind that than we'll get into here. Yeah.
Anyway, so you do not want a broadened horizon.
No, like I think what you're saying about the tight-knit group of main people who are the most active people is absolutely true. But there are 3,000 people, not just the main few. And although the main few might want to branch out or something like that, I feel that if they want to do that, they can do that on off topic, or they can do that on any other place. The value of online teaching Japan, a lot of it anyway, a lot of the value comes from the collation that it is focused. And I think that that's something that is easily overlooked. So that's why my comment was sort of, the whole of Facebook is right there. And early in the piece, I remember David used to say, hey, you want to post stuff like that, the political stuff or something like that, your own wall awaits you. Post it on your own wall, because that exists and all of your friends can see that. So people through OTJ maybe become friends with each other, and then you'll be able to see what's on each other's walls more. But that doesn't seem to be the actual purpose of the online teaching Japan feed, in my not so humble opinion. Did you
hear what I said though in response to what you said about, well, look, you've got the rest of Facebook, why not use that? And I said, people don't want to use that. They want to talk within this community.
Yeah, well, we all want stuff. But sometimes when what you want destroys what you have, it might not be the best.
Your equation,
Adam, that would be, I guess that's always the underlying reticence that I have, is like, there's something here, it's good. Be careful what you play with, because you might end up, destroying the essence of what it is. There certainly has been nobody ever coming to me. I've never had anybody come to me complaining, David, why is the group so focused? I wish we could do that. I personally, because I'm not out there. I mean, I'm pretty to myself. The only feedback I get from people are either from you, Adam, Jose, and Nick, or Cassie, or somebody sends me a private message, which is very rare about the nature of OTJ. I don't get the nature of OTJ from anybody, and I don't put myself out there far enough to be getting comments. So no one's ever said, hey man, I wish you would expand it. It's a little bit limited, don't you think? My only concern would be, wow, it's a pretty dynamic group. How do I have to do anything more to keep it dynamic? Could it fulfill a little bit of an expanded role to keep engagement happening? Because engagement is a crucial, consistent engagement over, say, not 1 year, but 3, 5, 10 years is the concept. Without engagement, there's no group.
If I could make a point,
without focus, there's maybe no group either, right? That's the
if I make a point though, just the one thing that Adam sort of says, yeah, but that would destroy the group. I don't know if that equation really works. I mean, you make the immediate equation that a change in the focus would literally, you said, destroy the group. I don't know if I would use that word. I think there are risks to maybe playing with the formula too much. So opening the floodgates so that then you have a whole rush of new posts, I think that would be stupid, literally stupid. That's not what anyone wants. But the idea of being able to discuss general pedagogy with such a talented group of pedagogical practitioners is something that's very, very appealing to me. And yeah, a little bit of that happens in off topic, but off topic itself only has what I think
245.
So not even 10% of the membership that is in OTJ, mostly because I think people don't know about off topic. We try to talk about it a lot, but people don't know that there.
They know, man. I put that out there so many times.
But wait, don't again. So sorry to interrupt, but what you post is not necessarily what everybody sees. If Facebook wants people to see what you post, they will see it. But if Facebook,
when I post something like, by the way, we have another group called OTJ Off Topic, I pin it to the top. So if they come into OTJ, that's going to be the first thing they see. Yeah, I mean, this is the perennial. We've had this conversation
a lot. Yeah.
And so my approach up until now is change nothing until you're sure which way you want to go, right? So thus nothing has ever happened.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from on that, Jose, as well. And yeah, the word destroyed is a bit alarmist, isn't it? But the point comes though from actually seeing other groups that were destroyed. Or at least greatly diminished to the point where it was a free-for-all. And that's sort of the extreme end of everything going to rubbish. You know, that's like, let all the politics in, let all the religion in, let everyone post their YouTube channel advertisements and stuff like that.
But that's the stuff that I completely agree that we still want to, like, you know, sift out.
But it's a long way away, isn't it? It's a great distance to get there. So
the other, you know, blaringly obvious, I mean, Simon actually just posted something there, perhaps, which is 3 minutes ago. Like, why not OTJ pedagogy, a new group, like another offshoot potentially, to satisfy any potential desire to discuss pedagogy in depth, for example. Certainly not that.
So that's one thing.
I mean, I've certainly thought of doing like an OT before. Somebody made a finance group here, one of my friends, but I thought of making like an OTJ, like retirement group, like for people to discuss retirement and funding and whatever, like living in Japan, like completely different than education, but something that affects all teachers, which would be your financing and funding of the future, for example. I've thought that many times to make a group like that, an offshoot, because but I wouldn't ever want that on OTJ.
I'll second that motion for an OTJ pedagogy group. If that were to emerge, I'd totally join it. And I'd be thrilled to see it. I don't know if pedagogy though is necessarily something that can't be put in the main OTJ main page though.
I think, wait, so you're saying that pedagogy as a general discussion is something that might be something we can squeeze into OTJ main?
You mean something like as in pedagogy with zero online relevance?
Well, okay, so this is what I was asking Dave about. Where do we start drawing the line? For example, if somebody was talking about extensive reading and the idea of silent reading, in the classroom, they specifically say in the classroom, silent reading. Do you do anything to just sort of pepper up the atmosphere with a bit of music or do anything like that? That is not online teaching. He's not talking about X reading or she's not talking about M reading, just with books. Would we allow something like that? And
that kind of post, Jose, doesn't exclude somebody from coming in and saying, this is how I've done silent reading online.
Yeah, like, but what if they don't? Well, what if they don't, Dave? I mean, like the original poster wanted to talk about silent reading in the classroom, and I think that would be okay.
Yeah, I think the way I post when I post things on OTJ is I always try to make especially having been back face to face for the last 6 months, I always try to make a connection between the two anyway, right? Otherwise, I don't post it. Like I can, and it's easy to find that connection. Silent reading is an easy connection to find both in face-to-face and online if you word it the correct way. If you propose that question, and this is for teachers out there who are teaching both online and face-to-face, or how do you deal with such and such in your room? And then people can answer both ways. Well, in my face-to-face class, I do this. In my online class, I do that. And that, I mean, I'm coming to that point of view where I don't see the big difference between online and face-to-face. So for me, it's okay, but it's not hard. It's not a leap to make your question relatable to both platforms or both environments.
I suppose, but I mean, why? I mean, I'm not really sure if you sound like you're trying to show people how to get around your own rules.
Right. Right.
And I don't know, well, why don't we just sort of like try to find a way to write the rules so that people don't have to like do the little dance and say, and prop in the word online in brackets, in parentheses, and just
well, I mean, that's how I've been handling it. I'll say, right? That's how I handle it. Is I just make sure that I don't know if it's a loophole. I mean, I try to make my posts relevant. Loophole. By the way, can I start promoting my band on OTJ? No.
I'm just reminded of there was a time when a few posts actually came up that were completely off topic of online teaching Japan, and then when alerted to it, the original poster retconned in some online relevance.
Yeah.
Just thinking we called that the loophole, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's something we want to put into the general discussion, though. And by the way, everyone, you can talk about anything you want as long as you drop the word online in there somewhere. And I don't know if that's really what we want to be advertising. Before we get too far, Helen has her microphone open. Helen, did you want to join in the discussion, or is that just a little bit of a mistake there?
I can turn it off anytime you like.
No, I'm just wondering if maybe that was an indication that you wanted to join.
No, I just hadn't muted it yet.
Okay. Well, if we go with the whole idea that anyone can manipulate any post so that then it looks like it's relevant to online teaching, it's kind of like
I don't see it as a manipulation. I see it as just making your post relevant, like by opening it up so it's inclusive for all teachers who are teaching. Is my camera breaking up on your end?
A little bit, yeah. Is somebody using the Wi-Fi in your house or something?
Possible that my wife is.
Could be, but it's okay. At least your audio is still good. So I got a couple of topics here. Comments here from Facebook. CA says, if there were an OTJ retirement group, it would probably need to focus on the psychological effects of transitioning into retirement. So just a bit of an aside. Let's see. And Bjorn says, wouldn't a simple rule of thumb be that if there is a SIG for it, then it doesn't belong in the main OTJ? I have a response to that. If the topic is so close to teaching in general, online or not, then it stays in the main channel. Now, here's the thing about what I sort of discovered is that there are topics that do have a SIG, but the SIGs themselves don't have an active community of discussion. So there's a SIG that exists for things like let's say Gale or Gile. And those people do have discussions, but not an online community. And what OTJ is an online community of people that respect each other, but don't necessarily have immediate contact with each other. So you're getting this very fertile soil of different thoughts that you could go to for new ideas. If you're always in your SIG, you're always talking to the same 5 or 10 or maybe 20 people. But here in OTJ, new members coming in all the time. If you're brave enough to sort of bring your topic from your SIG or from your private thoughts into this larger but caring community, it's something that's it's a unique experience. It's not like any that you would have in any other SIG. Those 3,000 people are an incredible sort of valuable resource that you can get only here. And then Simon says, If the main focus was not online and pedagogy was on the main site, I'd fear it would become select rather than broad. Okay, not really. I think maybe you might want to expound on that a bit, Simon, but what are your thoughts on those comments, Dave?
First thing that comes to my mind, and I'm not sure if it even relates, is that yes, there are 3,000, good point there, Jose, number one, there's 3,000 members. The group is quite diverse. Not only is it diverse, it's not all made up of members of people who are working and teaching in Japan.
Right.
There's actually probably 20% that are not in this country at all, but still find the group valuable for some reason. Maybe because it does lend it, keep focused on online teaching.
Maybe
the SIG thing, there's some good points there. On the simple fact is we're not JALT, so whatever people don't need to keep we're just not JALT. So there's no need to reference JALT or SIGs at all in my mind in this particular case. We're just a group of teachers that came together for online teaching, and certainly not all of us are JALT members, including myself.
and me.
Yeah. So JALT has a wonderful role to play in education in Japan, and they do that very well for the people who are members and benefit from it. I think OTJ is, the fact that it was a grassroots movement of people who contribute because they want to, not to enhance their careers, not to whatever. It's just like, I need some help on how to do something. I need some help on how to do something. Yeah, see, whenever I listen to Adam, he always brings me back to, he's like gravity in a sense, right? So, yeah, it's like,
don't let me make any mass jokes, but okay, gravity.
And for the members out there, for OTJ members out there, you should know that Adam, Jose, myself, and Cassie have a side group where we discuss a lot of these issues and we deal with a lot of the problems that occur in OTJ. So we are in discussion a lot, and the balance of the 4 members, at least for the last year and a half or so, has been what has made OTJ run. Certainly not it's not a one-man show, and I know you guys can vouch for that in terms of how decisions kind of generally get made. But the point being is that there's a balance between our personalities. If we did it if we went your way 100%, Jose, the group would be very different. If we went my way 100%, the group would be very different. If we went Adam's 100%, so there's sort of a balance in there. I think the status quo remains until something better, until someone has a.
I think the status quo should remain. I think we should maintain the discussion about how best to sort of see what we need to do to evolve into the future. And I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression about what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is to maintain the vibrancy of this community, the vibrancy and the relevancy of this community. And as online teaching itself sort of starts to lose a bit of the emergency impetus that it had before, and as we move into people getting used to these tools, how do we keep discussion, or how do we get back that old sort of lightning in a bottle, as Todd Buchan's once mentioned about what OTJ can be, that we had back in 2021 and back in 2020, when people were just throwing all kinds of ideas around, and there's so much information just going through the air. I could be wrong about this, but it seems to me that the number of posts being thrown out of OTJ back in 2020 was like, I don't know, 5 posts an hour, 10 posts an hour, and then maybe
in the first month it was 25,000.
Jeez. And I don't think we're going to do that this month.
Yeah, so I mean, putting the you meant what's the word? Not putting the genie back in the bottle, but creating the excitement or whatever. It's kind of like any relationship. There's the beginning of anything's always exciting, and then there's a sort of a maturing process, right? We're still here. We're still, we certainly haven't acted like we're dead. We're still keeping, you're still doing OTJtv. People are still coming to that. People are still, you mentioned something like 50 odd people or more are engaging with the program, which is, it's a lot of people. That's like we mentioned, going to a presentation. You'd be lucky if you get 50 people going to a presentation. So,
Yes.
So that's keeping people engaged in one way. And the nice thing about that is people can go back to that later and watch it. So that's an amazing thing about being an online group in the 21st century. We have the tools to catalog and keep all that information, but also the group is still here. I mean, I'm not teaching online, but I'm still posting stuff. I'm still here. I'm still engaged, still watching things. Yeah, I know. It's an ongoing discussion in my own mind every day, and it obviously is.
Another couple of comments. Sorry, Dave. From Bjorn. My point is that if OTJ becomes all things teaching, then it would just become like Jolt. Gonna disagree with that. I think for specialized, I think it should be specialized questions. It is better to use the various Jolts, SIGs, I guess, and other teaching groups, SIGs, that often have a Facebook online presence that is open to non-members. Actually, a lot of SIGs are not open to non-members. You have to join that SIG to get in. But I don't know if you mean about membership of Jolt.
Well, I'm a member of School Owners SIG. It's a highly educational group dealing with education in Japan, but I never, ever would bring any of that topic into OTJ. Number one, because I am a school owner, and that would be a conflict of interest. But number two, it's not what the group's about. It's not about school owners. Even though we deal with pedagogy, even though we deal with all of the issues that you talked about even tonight, discipline and stuff, but it's its own group. And I think that lends itself to what Adam said, right? It's just, we're a Superman comic book group only, nothing else, only Superman, like you said. And it's like a SIG. In a sense, OTJ maybe could be thought of as a SIG. To recapture that original spirit is like trying to recapture the original spirit of your relationship. And the first 6 months of a relationship with somebody is often, the sparks are flying, but it mellows into a more mature relationship as time goes on. We're certainly always here for an emergency with something, a new variant could kick in January and bang, who knows, right?
I bet you, if a new variant comes in January, you will not see a huge uptick in discussion. I bet you, because the tools are already there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
people already know how to, just because there's a new variant doesn't mean that people will suddenly lose their memory of how to use Zoom. They might say, hey, by the way, where's that button? Yeah, questions like that might come in. Just quickly here. Simon also came in and said, Simon says, mine was attempting to be a polite way of saying not becoming a uni teacher's pedagogy talking shop. There are enough of those on the main site, I mean. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. I mean, if you think that there are enough, then there are enough. If you think that, OTJ can bring some light onto some issues like that in an online teaching color to it, then maybe there isn't enough. Maybe, and again, those other groups are made up of 100, 150 people, and OTJ's community is very different in that sense, with 3,000 members. And what you can expect in terms of a response here is not what you can expect in terms of response with very specialized people. Maybe people don't want a specialist's response. Maybe they want specifically OTJ's response for whatever reason, And there are a lot of intangible.
I guess that was one of the elements I picked up recently in the last few weeks, is that there's a certain comfort level that, again, talking to one or two people doesn't give you what 3,000 people think, but it gives you something that things I never thought of before. Wow, people feel comfortable here. Isn't that nice? Wow. Is that what makes us unique? Is that it's online focused only, or that people feel comfortable? So, you know, I guess, you know, if I have to be honest in terms of running the group, there's an element that, you know, I get a kick out of it to a certain degree, because when I see activity, I think, wow, that's, you know, makes me feel good. It's a group I created. It's a group I help maintain. And when it's active, I guess I feel like I've contributed something to creating a space where activity happens. And so being a bit of a greedy person, in a way, like I'd like to, when I see more, you know, if there's something that can create more activity, I don't know if that's a selfish thing or not, but it's just I guess, you know, so this is a non-profit, no, there's zero money involved in this organization, but it's kind of like a little business. It's like it's an experiment, and it was an experiment at the beginning, but it's like, wow, there's people who are engaged. Isn't that, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch. I mean, I told Nick D'Annunzio last week, he said, you know, what's in it for you? And I said, it's a front row seat. It's a front row seat to what's happening in education, at least a view that I've ever had before. I get to watch what people are talking about. And I thought, you know.
And I think you just maybe, I don't know if it's a bit of a Freudian slip, but it's a front row seat to discussions about education.
Yeah.
Not a front row seat to educations about online teaching. Right. It's about education. Right. And that I don't think we need to make any broad changes to the rules, but I think I'm glad that we're actually having the, you know, this discussion, and that you want to start actually going through the thought processes out in public, and maybe people will glom on to this conversation a little bit and say, well, maybe we can try this, maybe we can try that, and we'll see how it goes.
With this video, if anybody happens to tune in later, if they have thoughts, they can keep putting them in the comments, or they can send they can send me a private message. Here's my thoughts, Dave. This is one way you could do it without destroying the essential, because somebody have bigger, you know, I only have this kind of a brain, right? So somebody out there with bigger ideas, or if you have concerns or fears that, no, let's keep it because I see it, if you did this, this would happen, like, you know, share any of your thoughts. I always engage with people in private chats, and a lot gets done through private chats, especially when people want to put stuff on OTJ that they're not sure about. Yeah, I always help guide them and listen, look, if you do this, it's going to be okay in this group, and then we get it up there. So yeah, no, it's a great conversation. I do appreciate you inviting me on to talk about it, and it's nice to hear a few people chime in as well.
Before you go, tell us, what are you up to these days? I think you got a gig coming up, eh?
Well, I finally said yes to a gig. It'll be in January 27th. So I got my first live stage coming up, the first time in 3 years. So what I'm into is just starting to put together some of the old songs that we used to do, and things will start rolling. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. And I'm, you know, just enjoying being a teacher more than ever.
Really? You feel reinvigorated getting back into the classroom?
Yeah. Not just in the classroom, but teaching. Just, I'm having fun.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Good to hear, man. Okay. I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I don't see any comments, and it's just basically you, me, Adam, and Chi in the room, and I don't see any hands up. So thanks a lot, buddy. And I want to say, just for everyone's sake, thank you for putting the group together. Thank you for staying in the front row and sort of herding us along. And thank you for I think, giving the teaching community in Japan something that it needed, honestly, a place to actually be with each other, the community that Linda likes to talk about, that I fervently believe is a great attractive point to what OTJ is, and everything that it's done couldn't have been without what you did. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys. It's nice to hear those words. And you know, likewise, without people putting in the energy like you do, or like Adam does, or like any of the other members, it wouldn't be a group. So it's nice to be part of something that was different, that came sort of came out of the blue, but filled a need, and it's remains relevant. It's nice to be involved in it, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come back again to the show when we have a chance to maybe discuss this a little bit more. And good luck at your gig, buddy.
Here's that.
Okay.
Very much. Great
Good
to
night,
see you.
everybody. Drive
Bye.
safely.